Chapter 15. An Unparalleled Genius. As the sun began to cast a warm, golden hue over the dojo, signaling an endpoint to the day's training, the rest of the students gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. Kaizen lingered behind, his eyes following his classmates as they prepared to exit the dojo. "Kaizen, thanks again for all the help today," Shuro said, slinging his bag over his shoulder. "I feel a lot more confident about my shuriken throws now." "Yeah, me too," Aiko added, smiling warmly. "You really know how to break things down so they make sense." Kaizen waved off the praise modestly. "I'm glad I could help. Just keep practicing, and you'll see improvements in no time." Ryu, still holding his practice leaf, walked over. "I'll keep working on my chakra control. Thanks for the tips, Kaizen." Kaizen gave him an encouraging nod. "You're doing great, Ryu. It just takes persistence and patience." Aiko glanced at the evening sun. "It's getting late. We should probably head out." Shiro nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's about time to go. What about you, Kaizen? Are you heading home now?" Kaizen shook his head. "I think I'll stay a bit longer to train. There's still a lot I want to work on." Aiko turned back one last time before leaving the dojo. "Just don't overdo it, Kaizen. See you tomorrow." Kaizen chuckled. "I won't, Aiko. See you all tomorrow." Meanwhile, Kakashi had already left the academy grounds as the familiar streets of Konoha greeted him with their usual hustle and bustle. The air was filled with the scent of fresh ramen from a nearby stand, and the sounds of merchants calling out their wares mixed with the laughter of children playing. The walk home was a familiar one, lined with cobblestone paths and shaded by ancient trees whose leaves rustled softly in the evening breeze. Kakashi moved with purpose, his mind replaying the day's events. As he approached the Hatake residence, the simplicity and tranquility of the home struck a stark contrast to the bustling village. The wooden gate, weathered but sturdy, creaked slightly as Kakashi pushed it open, revealing the serene courtyard within. In the center of the courtyard, amidst a scattering of fallen leaves, Sakumo Hatake was engaged in a rigorous training session. His movements were swift and precise, each strike of his blade executed with the kind of mastery that only years of experience could bring. Kakashi paused, taking in the scene before him. Sakumo's practice was a display of skill and control. The white fang of the leaf moved with ease, his blade flashing with a brilliant white light with each swing. Each movement was deliberate, his footwork steady and sure. A visible white aura flowed across the blade, illuminating the courtyard in brief, radiant bursts. Sakumo's actions flowed smoothly, combining quick slashes with defensive postures. He swung the sword in a series of fast strikes, the blade whistling through the air. Then, with a twist of his wrist, he shifted into a defensive stance, ready for any attack. The balance between his attacks and defenses was striking, a result of years of experience and countless battles. Sakumo noticed Kakashi's arrival and paused his training, wiping sweat from his brow. He greeted his son with a warm smile, the kind that spoke of genuine pride and affection. "Welcome back, Kakashi. How was your first day at the academy?" Kakashi recounted the day's events with a mix of excitement and veiled frustration. "It was challenging, but I learned a lot. We practiced kunai and shuriken throwing, and we even did chakra control exercises." "You remember Kaizen, right? His skills are incredible. It's like he's been training his entire life." Sakumo listened intently, nodding thoughtfully. "Yes, I remember him from the other day and the entrance exam. I was impressed by his performance. It's remarkable how talented he is, especially considering he doesn't come from a major clan or have parents to guide him. To reach that level on his own shows incredible dedication and potential." Kakashi's eyes burned with resolve as he continued, "Father, I want to become stronger. Today I saw what true skill looks like, and I know I need to train harder. Will you help me?" Sakumo was momentarily taken aback by the intensity in Kakashi's voice but quickly recovered, a proud smile spreading across his face. "Of course, Kakashi. I'm glad to see you so motivated. We'll start your training right away." The father-son duo moved to the center of the courtyard, where Sakumo began instructing Kakashi in the basics of kenjutsu, specifically the forms unique to the Hatake clan. Sakumo's instructions were detailed, focusing on stance, grip, and the fluidity of movements. They sparred with wooden swords, their movements reflecting the disciplined strikes and parries fundamental to their clan's techniques. the sound of clashing wood echoed through the courtyard, punctuated by Sakumo's corrections and Kakashi's determined responses. Each practice strike was a lesson in control, balance, and the seamless integration of offense and defense. Remember, Kakashi Sakumo said between strikes, it's not just about strength. You must be precise and controlled. Focus on your form and let your instincts guide you. Kakashi nodded, his eyes sharp with concentration. The training session continued well into the evening, the setting sun casting long shadows across the courtyard as the white fang of the leaf and his son honed their skills together. Back at the academy, Kaizen stood alone in the dojo, the silence a stark contrast to the earlier bustle. He took a deep breath, mentally preparing himself for an intense training session. He set up multiple targets at varying distances, each one representing a different challenge. Determined to push his limits, he decided to incorporate the leaf-sticking exercise into his regimen. This added layer of difficulty would challenge both his physical abilities and chakra control simultaneously. Taking a deep breath, Kaizen selected a fresh leaf from a small tree growing just outside the dojo. He carefully placed it on his forehead, focusing his chakra to keep it securely in place. The sensation of the leaf against his skin served as a constant reminder of the dual nature of his training. With this in place, Kaizen began with a series of dynamic stretches. Each movement was deliberate and controlled, preparing his muscles for the workout ahead. Next, he engaged in specific warm-up exercises to get his blood flowing. He started with shadowboxing, throwing quick, precise punches into the air, focusing on speed and technique. This exercise not only warmed up his upper body but also helped improve his reaction time. Kaizen then performed high knees, rapidly lifting each knee to hip level, pumping his arms in coordination. This exercise increased his heart rate and worked his lower body. Finally, he practiced a set of short, explosive jumps, aiming to touch an overhead beam in the dojo. Each leap tested his leg strength and agility, ensuring he was fully warmed up and ready for the more demanding part of his training. Throughout these exercises, Kaizen maintained his focus on the leaf balanced on his forehead, channeling his chakra to keep it in place. To his delight, the leaf remained steady, undisturbed by his movements. Encouraged by this success, he decided it was time to proceed to the next part of his training. Some targets were close, about 5 meters away, while others were further, up to 20 meters. He decided to begin with the closest targets, aiming to refine his accuracy. Starting with the 5-meter targets, Kaizen threw each shuriken, taking about 3 seconds between each throw at the start. The dojo filled with the sound of metal striking wood as each shuriken embedded itself in the center of the targets. With each successful hit, Kaizen's movements slowly appeared to become smoother and more natural, his body beginning to grow accustomed to the techniques from his previous life. After a few rounds, he moved to the 15-meter targets. The added distance made the challenge greater, but Kaizen adapted quickly. He threw shuriken in a steady rhythm, each throw landing perfectly in the center of the bullseye. Satisfied with his progress on stationary targets, Kaizen activated the dojo's pulley system, setting the targets in motion. These moving targets attempted to mimic the unpredictability of live combat. Kaizen took a deep breath and began his routine. He moved fluidly around the dojo, throwing shuriken every 2 seconds, tracking the motion of the targets. His steps were quick and light, allowing him to maintain balance and adjust his aim as the targets swung and swayed. Switching to kunai, Kaizen focused on combining speed and accuracy. He started with targets at 5 meters, throwing a kunai every second, quickly transitioning between throws. Each kunai struck the target dead center, confirming his aim. Kaizen then transitioned to hitting multiple targets in quick succession. At the 15-meter mark, he threw a series of 3 kunai, each half a second apart. The blades hit their marks with a satisfying thud, demonstrating his ability to maintain consistent performance under pressure. Throughout his intense practice, the leaf on his forehead remained in place, a real indication of his great talent in chakra control. Despite the long day of training and interacting with others, Kaizen's focus remained unwavering, his mind and body working in perfect harmony. He didn't let any distractions break his concentration, ensuring that every movement was purposeful. In a particularly challenging sequence, Kaizen set the targets to move erratically. He threw 5 shuriken in rapid succession, each one hitting its target dead center. Without pausing, he launched a kunai at a distant target 20 meters away, hitting it in the center. Looks like being reborn hasn't affected my skills all too much. The only problem is I'm actively having to focus and adjust my movements due to this new body, but that should be resolved over time. As Kaizen continued to train, he reflected on his performance during the day's activities. He analyzed his techniques, considering areas for improvement and planning his next steps. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one driving him to push himself harder. He also pondered his exceptional chakra control, questioning whether it stemmed from his previous life's rigorous training, an inherent natural talent, or a unique combination of both. Regardless of the reason, it will serve as a massive boon in my future endeavors, even more so as I begin to develop my own techniques in this world. As he was thinking to himself, Kaizen's stomach growled, a low rumble that echoed in the quiet dojo. He even felt a bit lightheaded, realizing he hadn't eaten since lunch. Ignoring the discomfort, he decided to push himself through one final challenge. He knew the importance of maintaining his training regimen, even if it meant pushing through hunger and fatigue. He set the targets at various distances and adjusted the pulley system to make them move unpredictably. This time, he planned to add the task of circulating chakra throughout his body to soothe his aching muscles while performing the challenge. Knowing this would be a tough task due to his accumulated fatigue, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath, centering himself. The leaf remained steady on his forehead as he focused his chakra. With a swift movement, he opened his eyes and began running. The target swung erratically, but Kaizen's eyes tracked their movements like a hawk zeroing in on its prey. He threw the first shuriken at a target 5 meters away, timing his release to match the target's swing. The shuriken flew with a faint whir, embedding itself in the center. He continued to move, his eyes locking onto the next target, which swung erratically at a distance of 10 meters. Without hesitation, Kaizen launched another shuriken. The target shifted to the right at the last moment, but his aim was true. The shuriken struck the center again with a satisfying thud. His pace quickened as his eyes traced a target 20 meters away, moving even faster. He reached for a kunai, his grip firm yet relaxed. As he ran, he visualized the kunai's path, adjusting for the target's speed and direction. The target zigzagged, creating a complex pattern. Kaizen's breathing slowed, his focus narrowing. In one fluid motion, he released the kunai. It flew through the air, a silver streak against the dimming light of the dojo. The kunai found its intended mark with perfect accuracy. Time continued to pass as the constant sound of shuriken and kunai striking wood filled the dojo, echoing like a class full of students in practice. Kaizen pushed himself relentlessly, his breathing growing labored. His drive to continue bordered on obsession, a level of ruthlessness that defined him. Kaizen's muscles screamed in protest, and his vision blurred at the edges from sheer physical, mental, and chakra exhaustion. He could feel his legs threatening to give out beneath him, but he forced himself to stay upright, his willpower driving him forward. He knew within his heart that he had to complete the final sequence without a single mistake. Anything less would be unacceptable to him. And so, he sprinted across the dojo, launching shuriken and kunai at all remaining targets. His throws were a blur of perfectly timed calculations, each weapon embedding itself in the center of its target. The dojo fell into silence as the echoes of his throws faded away. With his goal reached, Kaizen finally came to a stop, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. The leaf on his forehead somehow remained in place, despite the minute amount of chakra he had remaining. Taking the leaf off his forehead, he looked around at the targets and allowed himself a small smile. This is just the beginning. I need to reach a point where this feels effortless, he thought. I'll keep training every day until my body fully adapts to my skills and movements. Only then will I be able to truly harness my potential. Feeling the gnawing hunger in his stomach, as well as the intense fatigue of his body, he muttered, maybe it's time to get some dinner. He knew he had pushed himself to the limit, but the results were worth it. After cleaning everything up, Kaizen headed out, ready to refuel and rest for the challenges ahead. Unaware of Kaizen's crazy training session, Hiroshi made his way toward the Hokagai's office for his report. Despite the late hour, the village was alive with activity. Some of the vendors were closing up their stalls, families were returning home, and Shinobi carried out their duties. As Hiroshi walked through the familiar streets, he noticed the bright lights and lively chatter coming from Yakiniku-Q, where a group of young ninjas was celebrating after a day of training. Across the street, the Konoha bookstore still had a few patrons browsing through scrolls and novels. Hiroshi's sandals made soft thuds as he walked the streets. He passed by one of the flower shops run by the Yamanaka clan. The delicate scent of flowers mixed with the earthy aroma of the surrounding trees, creating a peaceful ambience. When Hiroshi approached the Hokage's office, the bustling atmosphere of Konoha's administrative heart was palpable. The Hokage Tower, an imposing structure of the village, was surrounded by a steady flow of people, shinobi, civilians, and visitors, all with various purposes. Before entering the building, Hiroshi passed through the courtyard, which served as a transition space between the busy village streets and the more controlled environment of the Hokage Tower. He noted the mix of urgency and calm efficiency that characterized the heart of Konoha's operations. As Hiroshi reached the entrance, he approached the security checkpoint. This area was designed to ensure the safety of everyone inside, while still allowing access to those with legitimate business. The checkpoint was manned by vigilant guards, well-trained in identifying threats and verifying identities. Hiroshi presented his identification to the guards. They scanned his ID and performed a brief chakra verification using a small device that resonated with his unique chakra signature. Satisfied with the results, the guards nodded respectfully and allowed him to proceed. Inside the Hokage Tower, the atmosphere was slightly more subdued but equally busy. Shinobi of various ranks moved through the corridors, some heading towards mission briefings, others to training sessions. Hiroshi walked past the reception area, where a few civilians were seated, waiting for their appointments. A receptionist behind a large desk managed the flow of visitors, ensuring that everyone was directed to the appropriate office or meeting room. Just beyond the reception area, Hiroshi entered the mission assignment room. This area was a hive of activity, with several desks and bulletin boards displaying available missions. Clients, both from within and outside the village, could come here to request the services of Konoha's shinobi. The staff at the desk reviewed each mission request, ensuring that the details were clear and the requirements were appropriate for the assigned shinobi. Any troublesome requests or high-ranking missions were passed up the chain of command as appropriate for further review. The mission assignment desks were specially staffed by experienced shinobi who had retired from active duty and by administrative personnel knowledgeable about the needs and capabilities of the village's ninja. These personnel worked closely with the Hokage and other high-ranking officials to ensure missions were assigned efficiently and effectively. After passing through the busy assignment area, Hiroshi made his way up the staircase leading to the Hokage's office. The stairs were lined with framed photographs and memorabilia, showcasing the village's rich history and the legacy of previous Hokages. Each step reminded Hiroshi of the importance of his role and the responsibility he held in guiding the next generation of shinobi. Upon reaching the top floor, Hiroshi approached another security checkpoint, this one even more stringent. The guards here were elite shinobi, selected for their exceptional skills and loyalty. They recognized Hiroshi and greeted him with nods of acknowledgement. After a final, swift verification, they opened the door to the Hokage's office, allowing Hiroshi to enter. The office itself was spacious, filled with shelves of scrolls and books. Maps and documents covered a large desk where the Hokage sat, reviewing reports. The room exuded an air of authority and wisdom, reflecting the critical decisions made within its walls. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, looked up as Hiroshi entered, his expression one of curiosity and anticipation. "Hiroshi Senju, it's good to see you," the Hokage greeted with a kind smile, gesturing for him to take a seat. "I've been eager to hear your report on Class 1A. I've heard Sakumo's son has joined the academy this year." "Good evening, Lord Hokage," Hiroshi responded, taking his seat. "Yes, Kakashi Hatake is part of the class, and he's quite impressive." The Hokage leaned forward slightly. "Tell me more about him and the rest of the class. How are they performing overall?" Hiroshi began his report, summarizing the performance based on the training after the entrance exam yesterday and today's exercises. The students are enthusiastic and show great potential. Their ages range between 6 and 8 years old, with Kakashi and another student, Kaizen, being the only exceptions at just 4 years old. Despite their youth, they have a strong foundation, and their eagerness to learn is evident in their efforts. "That's good to hear," the Hokage nodded. "Anything in particular stand out?" "Most of them performed well in the basic exercises," Hiroshi continued. "Their proficiency in kunai and shuriken throwing is commendable, and their chakra control is improving. However, the only students who have really stood out so far are Kakashi and Kaizen." The Hokage's eyes twinkled with interest. "And what about Kakashi? How is he adapting?" "Kakashi is calm and efficient," Hiroshi said. "His techniques are precise, and he's incredibly focused for his age. His skills are advanced compared to the others, but but he doesn't naturally step into a leadership role. He prefers to work independently. The Hokage nodded thoughtfully. It seems Kakashi takes after Sakumo in many ways but lacks his father's natural leadership qualities. Still, his individual skill is impressive. And what about this Kaizen? I don't recall hearing of him before. For Kaizen. Hiroshi continued, leaning forward slightly as he spoke. His chakra control is extraordinary. During the leaf-sticking exercise, he maintained a leaf on his forehead for over 30 minutes without the slightest tremor or shift. Such a feat is rare, even among our most advanced students. The Hokage's eyebrows raised in surprise, his interest clearly piqued. But that's not all, Hiroshi went on. His performance in shuriken and kunai throwing was nothing short of flawless. Every single shuriken and kunai he threw hit the dead center of the target, regardless of distance or difficulty. It's as if he has an innate understanding of the weapons and their trajectory. What's even more impressive is that Kaizen doesn't come from a notable clan. His abilities seem to be entirely self-taught. The Hokage's eyes widened in astonishment. Self-taught. To achieve such a level without the guidance of a major clan is truly extraordinary. This Kaizen must possess incredible dedication and talent. Hiroshi nodded. Indeed, Lord Hokage. His progress is astonishing, considering he lacked the typical support structures. He's not only a natural talent, but also seems to have an incredible drive to excel. Kaizen is an orphan, with no family or clan to support him. Everything he has achieved he has done on his own. Hiruzen's expression softened, a mix of admiration and concern crossing his features. An orphan, you say? That makes his accomplishments even more remarkable. We must ensure he receives the guidance and support he needs. Such talent, especially coming from such a background, must be nurtured carefully. The conversation continued to flow naturally as they discussed the other notable students in the class and Hiroshi's initial impressions. After gathering a good understanding, Hiruzen shifted the topic to a more serious matter. By the way, I received a report about an unsanctioned fight today, leaving 3 fourth-year students in serious condition. The report mentioned that you called the medics and handled the situation. Can you tell me more about what happened? Hiroshi nodded, his expression turning serious. Yes, Lord Hokage. The incident involved Kaizen and 3 older students. It started with verbal taunts but quickly escalated to physical threats. Kaizen stayed remarkably composed throughout the confrontation, attempting to be diplomatic while also standing his ground. Hiruzen leaned forward, listening intently as Hiroshi continued. Initially, the older students attacked Kaizen after their attempts to intimidate him failed. Hiroshi began. Kaizen showed remarkable restraint while defending himself, aiming only to incapacitate them without causing serious injury. However, when the situation escalated and the older students drew kunai and attempted to use ninjutsu, Kaizen's response shifted. His attacks became faster and were executed with ruthless efficiency. The speed and technique of his taijutsu led to the serious injuries the older students sustained. It was clear that once Kaizen felt truly threatened, he switched to a mode of defense that prioritized neutralizing the threat quickly, demonstrating a level of skill and strategic thinking far beyond his years. Hiruzen's eyes widened in surprise. I've never heard of someone so young exhibiting such advanced abilities. This level of promise at his age is extraordinary. Hiroshi nodded. That's exactly what struck me, Lord Hokage. His ability to maintain control and adapt under pressure was remarkable. But there's more. I forgot to mention his performance during the entrance exams yesterday. Kaizen scored the highest marks in the mental challenges part of the exam in the Academy's entire history. Hiruzen leaned back, clearly impressed. The highest marks in our history? That's astounding. It seems Kaizen is not only physically adept but also possesses a keen intellect. For someone without a clan or formal guidance to achieve this is truly amazing. Indeed, Hiroshi agreed. Despite being an orphan, his abilities are exceptional. This incident only further emphasizes his need for proper mentorship. I believe that with the right guidance, Kaizen has the potential to become one of our village's finest shinobi. Hiruzen nodded thoughtfully. We must ensure he receives the guidance and support he needs. Keep a close watch on him, Hiroshi. His development will be crucial for our future. Of course, Lord Hokage, Hiroshi replied. I will do my best to guide him and ensure he realizes his full potential. Hiruzen's expression softened as he looked at Hiroshi. Thank you, Hiroshi. Your dedication to these young students is invaluable. Keep me updated on their progress, and don't hesitate to bring any concerns or needs to my attention. I will, Lord Hokage. Thank you for your trust, Hiroshi said with a respectful bow. With their conversation concluded, Hiroshi left the Hokage's office, his mind filled with thoughts of the promising students under his care and the important role he played in shaping their future. Hiruzen, on the other hand, couldn't believe what he heard from Hiroshi Senju. He expected to hear some good things about Sakumo's son, but this new development was entirely unexpected, but not unwelcome. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. The dim light of his office cast long shadows, flickering slightly as the candle flames wavered. His mind raced with the implications of Hiroshi's report. Is this the birth of an unparalleled genius? He pondered, his gaze fixed on the ceiling as he considered the weight of such a possibility. Kaizen's abilities at such a young age are unlike anything we've seen before. His talents, if nurtured correctly, could shape the future of our village. The Hokage's eyes narrowed with determination. I must ensure that his development is carefully monitored and that he receives the guidance he needs. Given the volatile times we live in, especially as we are still recovering from the aftershocks of the Second Shinobi World War, the village desperately needs new heroes, those who carry the will of fire within them. Hiruzen's thoughts drifted to the sacrifices made during the war, the countless lives lost, and the heroes who had risen to defend Konoha. He felt the weight of his responsibility as the leader of the village, tasked with nurturing the next generation of shinobi. Kaizen and the others represent our future. They are the hope of Konoha, the ones who will carry our legacy forward. He sighed softly, a mix of weariness and resolve settling over him. I must protect them, guide them, and ensure they are ready for the challenges that lie ahead. With renewed determination, Hiruzen stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the village he loved so dearly. The sun had set, and the village was bathed in the soft glow of lanterns. The familiar sounds of life carried on, a testament to the resilience and spirit of its people. We will rise stronger from these times, Hiruzen vowed silently,